In this lecture, we will create Python classes. Now, the advantage of using classes is that it will help us improve the structure of our dataset. Let's understand the significant elements that we have in our data. So there are two significant elements that we have here. We have products and we have reviews. So if you look at the product, we have the ID, we have the title, we have the parent, and we have the category. And all the other things that you see are relevant to the review. So for the review, again, we have the ID, we have the customer ID, we have the number of stars that have been received, after which we have the review headline, we have the review body, and we have the review date. So I'm just going to write all of these once. So our product has ID, title, the parent, and the category. And then we have our review, which has our ID, customer ID, the stars, the headline, the body, and the date. So we are ignoring a few of the fields here to make it a little simpler, but this is what is important and what we are working with. What we want to do right now is to create two classes that have to be written in a separate file. The first thing I want to do is to go back to my original folder, and I'll make sure that the classes that I've already created are removed so we can create a new one. Okay, let's create our first class. So we will import a library called datetime. And don't worry if you don't understand this part completely. You will have to understand how classes work if you want to work with this. For now, you can just copy and paste what I've done. So we want to create a class called product, and this part should make sense. What all does it have? We have ID, which is a string. Then we have the parent, which is a string. Then we have the title, which is a string. And finally, we have the category, which is also a string. Then we have another data class. And in this, we want to define a class called review, where ID is a string. We have our customer ID, which is also a string. Then we have our stars, which is an integer. Then we have our headline, which is a string, our review body, which is also a string, and finally our date. Now the date obviously is a date, so we want to use our datetime library that we imported, and we want to create a datetime format. Now when we press Control Enter, you notice that nothing happens. A class has to be saved as a separate file in the same root folder. So I want to cut this entire thing. We will go back to Jupyter and we will create a new Python notebook. And this entire thing I'm going to call as classes. So we will download it as a Python file. Let's go to my folder and we can call this classes. Let's go back. Now remember, we want to create a new one. So we will again create a blank Python notebook. So we have already defined our data classes. Now we need to convert the data from the spreadsheet into these new structures. To do this, we can write first our product fields. So these are our product fields or the headings that we have. So let's say our product underscore ID. Now, if you go back to the original Excel, you will notice that the product ID is the fourth column. But remember, in Python, the index will start at 0. And that's the reason product ID will not be 4, but it will be 3. Similarly, the product parent will not be 5, but it will be 4. So now that we've understood it, our product ID is 3. Our product parent is equal to 4. Our product title is equal to 5. And finally, our product category is equal to 6, which means we are looking at ID, parent, title, and category. Similarly, we will have our review fields as well. And here we say that our review ID is equal to 2. Again, remember, review ID is the third column in the Excel file, but because the index starts at 0, review ID will be 2. And then we can write the others. So review customer is equal to 1. Review stars is equal to 7. Or review headline is equal to 12. Or review body is equal to 13, and our review date is equal to 14. We want to save this again. So file, download as a Python file. We will keep it. And this we want to call as mapping. So we have two files now. We have classes and we have mapping. We can just select both of these, cut it, and then put it in the same root folder. So if you notice, we have classes and mapping here. Now remember, you don't necessarily have to do the mapping that we have just done, but it is more for readability, because when you're passing the raw data, you don't have to end up with a lot of crazy numbers lying around. All right. So now let's look at the code that we need to parse the spreadsheet data into a list of product and review objects. So we can go back, and now that we have our two class file, we can write a code. Now this code is going to be a little long, but this is very important. So first we will import the relevant libraries. So we have from date time. We need to import date time. Then from OpenPyExcel, I want to import my load workbook. And then from classes, I want to import product and review. And then from mapping, we want to import our product ID. We will have our product parent. We will have our product title. Then we again have our product category, or review date, or review ID, the review customer. We have our stars, the review headline, and then finally we have the review body. The space followed by a slash is simply me breaking the single line into multiple lines, right? So if you don't put this, then you might get an error because it doesn't understand that the first and the second line are part of one line. That's why you have to put the space with a slash. All right. Now remember, we want to use a read-only method since we're not really editing the spreadsheet, right? So I just put it here that use a read-only method because we are not editing the spreadsheet. So we will say that workbook is equal to load workbook. Our file name is the same as earlier, which is samples.xlsx. And we also want to set read only is equal to true. Then we have products and we have reviews. And now we want to use the values. So we will say for row in sheet dot iter underscore rows, we want to keep the minimum row as 2, and we also want to set values only is equal to true. Then we say that product is equal to product where my id is equal to the row product id and then we say that parent is equal to row which is product parent. One more time, we have the title which is equal to the row which is product title, and then finally we have the category which is equal to the row which is product category. Once we have done this, we can simply say that products.append and product. Now remember, we need to parse the date from the spreadsheet into a date time format. So we will say that the spread underscore date is equal to my row which is the review date, and our parsed date is equal to date time dot str p time spread underscore date, and they were using a specific format. Don't worry if you have not seen this format earlier. These are just some internal formats that we have in date time, and you can just Google it and it will explain you what we are trying to do. For now, just copy what I'm doing. Okay, once we've done this, finally we need the review as well. So our review is the review where we are writing that the ID is the row review ID, and then just like we did earlier with the product, we will have to write that our customer underscore ID is equal to my row which is review customer. Then we have the stars which is equal to our row which is review stars. We have our headline which is equal to row review headline. The body is equal to row review body. And then what else do we have? Okay, we have the date which is equal to the past date, right? The one we just created. And then finally we say that reviews dot append and review. Excellent. So quite a lot of effort, but once we have done this, we can print our products, and we can also print our reviews. And when we run this, you notice very smartly it is telling us the product details and the review details like this. And if I change it to 1 and 1, now you notice we get the result for B00D3RG02020. So if we go back, you will notice we are getting the second item, which is this one. And this is the reason, because we wanted the data to be structured where we can see product and review separately. And then within product, all the columns, which is ID, parent, title separately, and within review, ID, stars, headline, and so on separately. To make this data look clean, we created two class modules, and after which we created this entire piece of code. So don't worry about the length of the code. It's very, very important that you get comfortable with it. It's not particularly difficult. Once you do this a few times, you will get the hang of it.